Hey, Fiona, how's it going today?
Hi, Vincent. I'm doing well, thanks. I actually just came back from grabbing a coffee, so I feel a little more alive now. How about you?
Oh, I know that feeling. I had my usual morning rush, running around, trying not to be late. But now that we're here, I'm excited to record this episode.
Same here. I think the best part of doing these conversations is that it feels like we're just chatting as friends. And hopefully, our listeners feel like they're right here with us.
Yeah, and that's the goal. We want this to feel natural, like sitting at a cafe and eavesdropping on a friendly conversation. No boring textbook English, just the real way people talk.
Exactly. And sometimes that means we'll laugh, get sidetracked, or even make little mistakes. That's real life. But that's also how our listeners can really improve their English by hearing English the way it's actually spoken.
Totally. It reminds me of when I was learning another language. The moments that stuck with me weren't from grammar books, but from small, everyday chats, ordering food, asking for directions, talking about random things with locals.
Right. Those conversations stick because they're alive. And when you listen, you don't just learn words, you learn tone, rhythm, and even cultural habits, like how Americans smile at strangers, or how we say, "How's it going?" even if we don't expect a long answer.
True. And speaking of cultural habits, I've noticed that in the US, small talk is almost like a warm up before the real conversation. Even if you're meeting someone for business, it usually starts with, "Hey, how's your day?" Or "Did you catch the game last night?"
Yeah, it's like a social handshake. Without it, the conversation feels cold. That's why we always start our podcast with a little warm up, so our listeners get that same friendly vibe.
And hopefully it helps them practice small talk too. Because honestly, small talk is one of the hardest but most important parts of English. It feels simple, but it's how you build connections.
Absolutely. So before we dive into today's topic, let's just say thank you to everyone who's tuning in right now. Whether you're walking to work, cooking dinner, or studying in your room, we're really happy you're spending this time with us.
Couldn't have said it better. And if you're new here, stick around. This episode is going to be both fun and super practical.
Yep, let's get started.
Before we jump into the main topic, let's take a quick moment to introduce ourselves and the channel. If this is your first time listening, welcome. You found the American English Podcast.
And if you've been here before, welcome back. We're so glad you're joining us again. This podcast is all about helping you improve your English in the most natural way possible through real conversations about everyday life.
Exactly. You see, English is not just about rules or vocabulary lists. It's about rhythm, flow, and context. And one of the best ways to get that is by listening to conversations, just like the ones we have here.
That's why we created the American English Conversation Series. In each episode, we pick a real life situation like ordering food, asking for directions, or making small talk, and we act it out in a way that feels authentic.
Yeah, it's like eavesdropping on two friends talking in English, but with the bonus that we explain cultural details, expressions, and vocabulary as we go.
And it's designed for learners at different levels. If you're a beginner, you'll still hear simple phrases you can use right away. If you're intermediate, you'll pick up natural idioms and phrasal verbs. And if you're advanced, you'll notice the subtle details of how Americans really speak.
Plus, we don't just give you the what, we give you the why. For example, if Americans often say, "Can I get a coffee?" instead of "May I have a coffee?" we explain the cultural reason behind it. That way, you don't just learn the words, you understand the mindset.
And that's what makes language learning exciting. When you start to notice those little details, English becomes more than just a subject you study. It becomes a tool for connecting with people, exploring cultures, and even traveling the world.
Speaking of traveling, today's episode is part of our travel-focused mini-series. So if you're planning a trip or you just want to imagine yourself exploring new places, this will be really useful.
That's right. So, whether you're a student, a professional, or just someone who loves learning, you're in the right place.
And one last thing before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe or follow this podcast so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes.
Sounds good. Let's move on to the main part of today's episode.
So, Fiona, today we're diving into a topic that every traveler needs: how to ask for directions and how to book things when you're traveling.
Yes, and honestly, this is one of the most practical skills in English. Imagine you land in New York City, or Los Angeles, or even a small town somewhere in the US. You'll probably need to ask questions like, where's the subway station? Or how can I get to the hotel?
Exactly. And here's the funny part: most travelers don't realize that Americans usually give directions in a very casual way. Instead of saying, walk north for 500 meters, someone might say, just go straight until you see Starbucks, then turn left at the traffic light.
Right. It's more about landmarks than distances, and that can be confusing if you're not used to it. But it's also super helpful because you'll get clues about what to look for on your way.
And then there's booking. Booking a hotel, booking a tour, booking a table at a restaurant. These are situations where you want to sound polite and confident.
Definitely. Think about how stressful it feels when you're trying to reserve something in another language. The words can just disappear from your brain. But if you have a few simple phrases ready, like, I'd like to book a room for 2 nights, or can I reserve a table for 4, you'll feel much more relaxed.
And what I love about this topic is that it's not just for traveling abroad. Even if you're living in the US, you'll need these skills. Imagine you just moved to Boston. You'll have to ask your neighbor where the bus stop is, or call a restaurant to book dinner.
Exactly. It's survival English in the best sense of the word. And the cool thing is, once you practice it, you'll notice that these conversations repeat themselves. People give directions in similar patterns. Receptionists usually ask the same questions when you book a room.
That's a good point. So once you get comfortable with a few core phrases, it's like unlocking a whole set of real-life conversations.
And we're going to show you how. In today's episode, we'll not only talk about useful phrases, but we'll also role play some real situations so you can hear how it sounds in action.
Yes, so stick around. By the end, you'll feel ready to walk into a hotel lobby or ask a stranger for directions without feeling nervous.
All right, let's get into the main conversation.
You know what always gets me when I travel? It's not the airport. It's when I finally step outside and realize I have no clue where to go.
Oh, I've been there. I remember arriving in Chicago once. I thought I was ready, but the second I left the station, I was totally lost. And of course, my phone battery was about to die.
Classic. And people think asking for directions is easy. But in the US, you don't usually get short answers. You ask, where's the park? And suddenly you've got a 5-step guide with street names, landmarks, and traffic lights.
Exactly. I once asked a guy for a coffee shop, and he went, go straight past the Walgreens, cross at the second light, then when you see a Dunkin' Donuts, turn right. By the time he finished, I'd already forgotten the second step.
Yeah, that's why I always repeat it back. Like, so straight, then left at the light, right? It saves me from ending up on the wrong side of town.
That's a smart move. Another funny thing is how Americans describe distance. Someone says, oh, it's just around the corner, and suddenly you're walking for 15 minutes.
Oh man, yes. Around the corner could mean 1 block or a half mile. You never really know.
Exactly. So a useful question is it walking distance? That way you know if it's worth walking or if you should grab an Uber.
Great point. Want to role play this? I'll be the tourist, you be the local.
Sure, let's try it.
Excuse me. Hi. Could you tell me how to get to Central Park?
Of course, just walk straight down the street, past the big Apple store, then turn left at the second light. The entrance to the park will be on your right.
So straight, then left at the second light, and the park is on the right.
Yep, that's it. Shouldn't take more than 10 minutes.
That felt pretty real. And notice you used landmarks, Apple Store, park entrance, instead of street names. That makes it way easier.
Totally. Most visitors won't remember 59th Street, but everyone can recognize an Apple store.
And you know, sometimes when you ask directions, people don't just point the way, they actually walk with you. I've had strangers take me halfway just to make sure I didn't get lost.
Same here. In San Francisco, a woman once said, "Oh, I'm heading that way. Come with me." We ended up chatting and she gave me local tips that weren't in any guidebook.
That's what I love about traveling. Asking directions isn't only about finding your way, it's also about connecting with people.
Yeah, and even if you take a wrong turn, sometimes that leads to the best adventures.
Couldn't agree more. Getting lost has given me some of my favorite travel stories.
So, we've talked about directions, but the other big thing when you travel is booking. Hotels, restaurants, even tours. That can feel a little more stressful, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, for sure. With directions, if you mess up, you just take the wrong street. But with booking, you don't want to sound rude or confuse the person.
Exactly. I always tell people if you remember just one phrase, it should be, "I'd like to." It works everywhere. Like, "I'd like to book a room," "I'd like to reserve a table," "I'd like to join the tour."
Yeah, that's simple and polite. But you know what's funny? Sometimes you don't even need full sentences. I've heard travelers at hotel desks just say, 2 nights, double room, please. And the receptionist understood perfectly.
True. Americans are pretty used to quick, direct requests. As long as you add please, it usually comes across polite.
And if you want to sound extra natural, you can soften it. Like, could I book a table for 4 at 7, please? It feels smooth and friendly.
Yeah, the little details make a difference. Want to try a hotel role play?
Sure, let's go.
Good evening. How can I help you?
Hi, I'd like to book a room for 2 nights, please.
Of course. What dates will you be staying with us?
From May 12th to May 14th. Do you have a double room available?
Yes, we do. That'll be $150 per night. Would you like breakfast included?
Yes, please. That sounds great.
And that's pretty much how it goes in real life. Simple, polite, and clear.
Totally. You don't need to overthink it. Just keep it direct.
Let's try a restaurant one.
Hi, could I reserve a table for 4 at 7 p.m. tonight?
Sure. May I have your name?
It's Vincent.
Thank you, Vincent. We'll see you at 7. See? Quick and easy.
And here's something travelers should know. In the U.S., restaurants often ask your name and sometimes your phone number too, so be ready for that.
Right. And depending on the city, you might not even need a booking. In small towns or at casual diners, you can just walk in and say, "Table for two, please."
Yeah, but in big cities on weekends, definitely book ahead. Otherwise, you'll be waiting forever.
Exactly. So really, booking isn't scary. It's predictable. The questions are always the same and the phrases repeat. Once you practice the few times, it becomes second nature.
And it's a great way to build confidence because you know what to expect.
Totally. And even if you make small mistakes, don't worry. People will still understand and they'll usually try to help.
Couldn't agree more. The important thing is just to try. You know, Fiona, when I think about it, Directions and booking have something in common. They're both about making a request. You're asking someone to help you, whether it's finding a place or saving you a seat.
That's true. And the funny thing is, even though these conversations are short, they can feel like a big deal when you're nervous in another language.
Oh, yeah. I remember my first time in New York. I asked a guy how to get to Times Square, and he answered so fast I only caught half of what he said. I ended up following the crowd, hoping they were going the same way.
Did it work?
Kind of. I got there eventually, but I also discovered a pizza place I never would have found otherwise. So it was a win-win.
See? Sometimes mistakes actually make the trip better. You get those surprise moments.
Totally. And that's why I always tell people, don't stress about being perfect. Just ask. Even if your grammar isn't spot on, people will usually understand.
Right. It's more about confidence than perfection. If you walk up with a smile and say, "Excuse me, could you help me?" People are usually happy to.
Totally. And here's a little tip. Tone matters. If you sound polite and friendly, it goes a long way.
Same with booking. You don't have to sound like Shakespeare. You can just say, "Hi, I'd like a room," or "Table for two, please." Add a smile and a thank you, and you're golden.
Speaking of restaurants, I once booked a table in Los Angeles, and when I arrived, they couldn't find my name. Turned out I had said Vincent, but the host wrote down Benson.
Oh no.
Yeah, so now I always spell my name if it sounds unclear. Just say, it's Vincent, Vincent. Saves a lot of trouble.
That's such a good hack. And here's another one. If you're not sure what to say, just listen to the question carefully. Hotel staff, for example, usually ask the same things. How many nights? What kind of room? Do you want breakfast? Once you hear it a few times, it becomes super predictable.
Exactly. It's almost like a script. Once you've practiced it, you can use it anywhere.
And with directions, it's the same. People often use the same words: straight, left, right, block, corner. Once you learn those, you can understand 80% of what they're saying.
Totally. And hey, if all fails, Google Maps is your best friend.
True, but I'd still encourage people to ask locals sometimes because you get those extra little tips, like, "Oh, that cafe is nice, but there's a better one just around the corner."
Yeah, you don't get that from an app.
So whether it's booking or directions, it's not just about the words, it's about connecting with people, being flexible, and enjoying the experience.
Couldn't have said it better. And honestly, those little conversations are the ones you remember the most.
Absolutely. So shall we wrap this up for our listeners?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's bring everything together. Today we talked about two of the most common situations travelers face: asking for directions and booking things like hotels or restaurants.
Yeah, and both of these can feel intimidating at first, but once you break them down, they're actually really simple, and they repeat a lot. Directions almost always include words like straight, left, right, corner, or block. Booking usually involves questions like how many nights or what time.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to sound perfect. Even short, direct phrases can work. If you forget the full sentence, you can just say, "Two nights, please," or "Table for two." Add "please" and a smile, and it goes a long way.
And don't forget the little tricks we mentioned, like repeating directions back to check you understood, spelling your name when booking, or asking, is it walking distance when someone says around the corner?
Those small details can save you a lot of stress, and honestly, they make you sound more natural too.
Another big takeaway is that these interactions aren't just practical, they're also opportunities to connect with people. Asking for directions might lead to a fun conversation. Booking a table might turn into a local recommendation you'd never find online.
Yes, and that's what makes traveling with English so exciting. Every time you use the language in real life, you're not just practicing, you're building memories.
Couldn't agree more. So if you're listening to this, here's a challenge. Next time you're traveling, or even in your own city, try using one of the phrases we practiced today. Ask someone for directions, or make a booking in English. You'll be surprised how quickly you build confidence.
And remember, don't be afraid of mistakes. Mistakes are part of the journey. Sometimes getting lost leads to the best adventures, and sometimes a mispronounced word makes for a funny story you'll tell later.
Exactly. And hey, we've all been there, so you're in good company.
Before we sign off, we just want to thank you again for spending your time with us. Whether you're walking, cooking, commuting, or just relaxing, we're glad you chose to listen today.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe or follow this podcast so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes.
We'd also love to hear from you. What's a travel situation you found tricky in English? Share it in the comments or send us a message. Who knows, we might cover it in a future episode.
That's a great idea. All right, I think that's it for today.
Yep, that's a wrap. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Take care, everyone, and safe travels.